Let me share my screen here. All right. So thanks for joining us today and looking forward to getting to know you all. I'm Juliana. I'm a technical product engineer on Xpanse, as you just heard, and today we're going to talk about managing your attack surface with Xpanse and machine learning and AI-powered capabilities. So I'll start off with an ASM overview. Just a precursor to this, I was at the RSA security conference in San Francisco earlier this year and was overwhelmed by the number of new vendors I saw talking about ASM and including that in their marketing material. And so I think it's good to just start off with a definition of what we consider the attack surface. And so how we define the attack surface is the boundary of your environment that an adversary can attack. So we're looking at that outside-in perspective of all of these different components. And it used to be that 10 to 20 years ago, it's pretty simple to manage your attack surface. You had maybe your data center, some websites, and a few other assets on an inventory list that you could send to your vulnerability scanner. But today, the attack surface has really exploded, encompassing cloud, mobile devices, remote workers, supply chains, and M&A infrastructure. And so virtually every organization has shadow IT now, driven by that move to cloud and digital transformation. So this is what we see as the attack surface. So to go into this a little bit more, your attack surface is located in many places, not just on-prem, but also in the cloud, subsidiary locations, and your remote ISPs. And it's made up of many different types of devices. So I mentioned websites, database servers, VPNs, load balancers, and workstations open on RDP. And it's also found via different identifiers, including IP addresses, domains, certificates, and signatures. So I think it's also important to define what the attack surface is not. So we don't see the attack surface as your internal network. So we are looking at this outside-in only view. This is the attacker's perspective. And so we're not considering the internal network as part of your attack surface. We're also not considering brand monitoring to be part of your attack surface. There are some challenges that we see with this area. And so as product strategy, we've decided not to focus on that as part of your attack surface. So we are not looking at phishing domains. We're not looking at rogue mobile apps or fake social media accounts. We're also not doing dark web monitoring. So again, some challenges there, and we don't see a lot of value in that because of our focus on active attack surface management, which I'll get into. But we don't consider the hacker chatter on the dark web or data dumps of leaked credentials on your attacks to be part of your attack surface. So now we'll transition into the state of ASM. So I alluded to this earlier, remote work and the move to cloud have really scattered IT infrastructure, and this is the main motivation behind the Xpanse technology. So you have development infrastructure, cloud assets, et cetera, and you need to make sure that you're monitoring all of this to be secure. So we also see that this creates 4 distinct challenges for your teams. First thing is that we see a lot of teams struggle with limited attack surface visibility. So security teams just don't know all the different things that are out there that might belong to them. And this poor visibility causes major problems when new CVEs come out. So often organizations don't know where their assets are, they can't react quickly to 0 days, and it turns into a bit of a fire drill when 0 day is announced and then teams are scrambling to figure out how to fix it. And then there's also this challenge of prioritizing risk. So there's such an overwhelming number of alerts that you see, and how do you know what you should actually be focusing your time and attention on? And then finally, even if you do find certain security alerts that you want to act on, actually remediating those is often difficult and time consuming. It can be challenging to figure out who the asset owner is and to track them down, and then ensure that something is actually taken offline. So this is a big focus for Xpanse and why we really emphasize that piece of active attack surface management, because we want to help you manage your attack surface and actually fix things and take them offline. So what we see with customers that we work with is, on average, organizations, there's about 30 to 40% of their publicly accessible attack surface that they don't know about. And so when we start working with customers and do kind of an initial mapping and look at their network, we find that 34 to 40% of assets are unknown. We also did a lot of research with our threat team to look at new exposures. And we found that on average, every 12 hours, organizations average a new public exposure. And as part of this research, we also found that attackers started scanning for vulnerabilities within minutes of those exploits being published. So attackers are moving really quickly, and this is creating a lot of challenges for security teams. So also part of our research, this was a study that our Unit 42 team did. We found that 20% of services are new each month. So if you look here at this graph on the left, we see across different industries, averaging new services that are introduced on any given month. It's about 20% of new services. So that's really hard to keep up with. And then we've also found that 80% of those alerts are in the cloud. And we've seen this change from year over year when we've been doing these research reports, that on-prem number has gotten a lot smaller and the cloud number has gotten a lot bigger. So it's definitely accelerating, and it's really hard to have good visibility into cloud assets just because of the nature of how dynamic they are. So Xpanse addresses these challenges, and these are kind of the pillars of what we're doing. So the first is this comprehensive attack surface discovery, where we are going out and discovering and monitoring all assets exposed to the public internet. And this allows us to provide immediate zero-day visibility by quickly matching up inventory with newly discovered threats and vulnerabilities. So if you think about this year, even, there were so many 0 days, and I'll show in a little bit some of what we did in the product to provide that visibility to our customers. But it's the first thing that, it's the first thing that CISOs and board members want to know when a 0 day comes out, is how are we impacted? So we're also doing risk-based prioritization. So taking into account threat intel to rank alerts by the area of highest impact and helping you to manage risk based on certain priority levels. And then we provide an automated burst remediation approach, where we're automatically pulling in asset context like service owners through integrations and other means. This is where we're leveraging a lot of AI in our playbooks to go out and identify those owners. And so in certain cases, we can even fix things by blocking an exposed service at the port level on behalf of an analyst. And then we're supporting all these different factors with enterprise readiness. And we don't require any hardware, software, or agents to install. So easy to deploy across any organization. So zooming into attack surface discovery, this was something I thought was really cool when I first started learning about our technology, is how complete we're able to get such a complete and accurate picture. And this is because, first, we operate our own indexing infrastructure, and we have been doing this for over a decade, starting off as a project for DARPA and building out this infrastructure over time, most recently adding IPv6 to our scanning as well. And then we go out and do not just port scans, but also full protocol handshakes to verify what we're finding. We have native integration, so with cloud providers, or if you are a Prisma Cloud customer, we have a really powerful integration with Prisma Cloud as well. And then we also recently added web crawling. So we're looking at web assets and software server running on your websites as well. And then from that port scanning, protocol handshakes, integrations, and web crawling, we're able to pull and identify IPs, certs, domains, cloud compute instances, services, and websites. Once we have all of that, we are leveraging machine learning and AI to attribute those assets. And because of the technology that we're using, we're able to discover 20% or in some cases more new assets every month. And then on top of that, we have a team of human analysts that are doing this review to go through and do more thorough reviews and looking at different naming conventions and patterns in giving us that super accurate picture on top of your inventory. So 0-day visibility, I mentioned that when an internet emergency comes out, most security teams are looking to see how they're impacted right away. And this, we saw this firsthand this year. A lot of our customers asked us to look at GitLab instances that were vulnerable. Barracuda email security gateways, that was a big one this year of don't just patch your vulnerable devices. We actually urge you to rip out and fully replace them. So what we see here are some examples of in the product, our threat response center. So this was something that we added earlier this year. And this is kind of your one-stop shop for looking at emerging threats and internet emergencies. So we will tell you if you have active alerts related to that vulnerability. And we also will include a criticality score of that, for example, move it transfer with a description and research around what the threat is and what's been found on it so far. And then also help you to assess the impact on your org by providing exploit consequences, those different categories here. And then looking at exploit activity, if there's been a proof of concept published, if it's been exploited in the wild. And then, of course, response is a big part of this. So we track and help you build remediation plans and then track your resolved alerts and status there as well. And I'll also note here that this is an example of how we are responding faster than a VM tool. So it's a common question that comes up is, I already have a VM tool, or how are you different from that? And a lot of what I talked about earlier around our complete and accurate inventory, because we are doing continuous monitoring, because we are updating your assets in real time and looking at impacted devices in real time, we are able to respond way faster than a VM tool, just like days faster. And so it's something that's really important, again, because attackers are so quick to get in there and exploit, and we want to be able to help you fix that. So risk-based prioritization, this is what I mentioned of how we're helping you focus on important threats to your business. So we've added this automatic risk prioritization. And what we're looking at is both threat and exploit intelligence. So we pull in the CVSS score, and this is, per alert, you'll see it in the platform. But then we also pull in this ESPS score, prediction scoring system, EPSS. This is like one of the most industry trusted scores, the best out there to come up with an assessment on how to prioritize things. So it gives a probability of the chances that something will be exploited. So this is a scientifically based perspective. We incorporate to assess your risk. And then we've also have a security rating to help you compare the health of your organization to industry peers. And so this is what we see as a very honest one-to-one comparison where everyone is compared against the same set of criteria. And it's updated in real time daily to give you that score. Over here, we see an example of a vulnerability that was announced and how on that same day, we create an incident and give it a risk score. Once that POC became available on GitHub, we then assigned an incident priority and raised that risk score with that data. And then once it became a known active exploitation, that incident was escalated to the top of the list. So this is how we're using that information, that threat and exploit data to give you risk-based prioritization. So here's an example to look at with ransomware. We have found that ransomware is the largest, or RDP rather, is the largest attack vector for ransomware. And so it's something that we see a lot of customers struggling with, and something that we've put a lot of investment into automating response efforts. So as an example, let's say we go out and we're doing our scanning, we find that an RDP is exposed externally. We create an alert in Xpander for that. And most tools stop here. This is really what most tools are doing, creating this alert. But what we are doing is actually kicking off a playbook for that RDP. And with our AI behind the scenes, we are pulling in enrichment context. So we look at things like the owner to identify the asset owner. And then we can, if you have an integration set up with your CMDB, like ServiceNow, let's say, we can send a ticket, we can notify via email, and just give you options to start kicking off that triage process. And then the analyst confirms that automation remediation can be taken. So here we do offer the analyst, if you want, we can automatically remediate this for you. If that RDP instance is in your AWS, we can connect and close that port for you. And then we'll also kick off a scan and confirm that that vulnerability has been taken offline and close out the alert. I'll also mention that there's some cool updates coming in the 2.3 release, which will be on the 29th of this month. And then the second deployment date is November 12th. So look out for some news around that. We've been doing a lot of enhancements around this active response. Overall, this is reducing time to remediate and reducing analyst time to resolve. So lastly, I wanted to mention a few things around our cross Palo Alto portfolio. So if you're familiar with XIM, ASM is built into XIM where we are a key data source. So if you're using XIM, you can make sure that your attack surface, all of those assets that we're going out and identifying and attributing to your organization will be a part of your XIM data. And so can be leveraged in your incident management as well. And then lastly, we have an integration with Prisma Cloud. I mentioned this is really powerful. You can benefit from ASM to discover unknown cloud assets. And so here is a screenshot from our platform of your total unmanaged cloud services, alerts on those services, managed cloud services in the last 30 days, and then distribution of unmanaged cloud. So if you have, let's say, an approved provider, AWS, and you might not know that you also have things in Oracle or Google, like other providers. It's a really quick way to have a visibility into that. So here's another look at that, and then your alerts and alerts on cloud services. So I'm going to stop there and open it up to questions, and I'll check the chat and see if there's anything here.